My daughter stood at her wedding reception surrounded by champagne glasses and designer flowers and told everyone, "My mother wasn't feeling well. She left early." But I was right there, sitting alone in the last row, watching her celebrate the biggest day of her life while pretending I didn't exist. 7 years. No calls, no texts. She abandoned me because she was ashamed of her mother, the cleaning lady. But what she didn't know? While she was busy forgetting me, I built something worth $50 million in silence. And the day she went bankrupt and walked into that bank, she discovered who I really was. If you want to hear how this story ends, please hit that subscribe button. This is a story you won't forget. Now let me tell you my story from the beginning. It was a perfect September afternoon in Manhattan, the kind of day you see in movies: golden sunlight streaming through crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, and 200 guests dressed in their finest. My daughter, Jessica, looked absolutely stunning in her ivory Vera Wang gown. I remember sitting there, clutching my small purse, wearing the best dress I owned, a simple navy blue one I'd bought at Macy's on clearance 3 years ago. I was seated in the very last row, not even on the bride's side, really, just there, like a shadow. I watched her walk down the aisle on the arm of her fiancé's father, not me, his father, because, well, her own father had passed away 23 years ago, and me, I wasn't quite good enough for that honor, apparently. But I told myself it was okay. At least I was invited. At least I could see her happy. The ceremony was beautiful. I cried, not just because every mother cries at her daughter's wedding, but because I'd waited 7 years for this moment. 7 years since I'd last heard her voice. 7 years since she told me not to contact her anymore. Then came the reception. I sat at a table near the kitchen entrance, no place card with my name, just an empty chair I found myself. The table filled up with people I didn't know, distant relatives of the groom, maybe. They made polite small talk with each other and barely glanced my way. I didn't mind. I was used to being invisible. But then I heard it. Jessica's voice, bright and cheerful, talking to a group of her new in-laws just a few feet away. "Where's your mother?" one of them asked. "I haven't seen her yet." My heart stopped. I held my breath. Jessica laughed, that light, carefree laugh I remembered from when she was a little girl. "Oh, Mom wasn't feeling well. She had to leave early. You know how it is." The woman made a sympathetic sound. "Oh, that's too bad. Well, I hope she feels better." "Thanks," Jessica said smoothly. "She will." I sat there, frozen, my hands trembling in my lap. The salad in front of me suddenly looked like plastic. I couldn't swallow, couldn't breathe. She was 10 feet away from me, and she was telling people I wasn't there. That's when I understood. This wasn't about seating arrangements or family politics. This was intentional. She'd invited me, probably out of some sense of obligation, but she never intended to acknowledge me, not in front of these people, not in front of her new life. I was there to ease her conscience, nothing more. I stayed through dinner, through the toasts, through the first dance. I watched my daughter twirl across that marble floor in the arms of her new husband, Brandon, and I smiled, even though my heart was breaking into 1,000 pieces. Around 9 p.m., I quietly got up, left my napkin on the chair, and walked out. Nobody noticed, not even her. On the cab ride back to my small one-bedroom apartment in Queens, I finally let myself cry, really cry, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and painful, somewhere you've been trying to ignore for 7 long years. How did we get here? How did my sweet little girl, the one I'd sacrificed everything for, become someone who was ashamed of her own mother? To answer that question, I need to take you back to where it all began. High school changed everything. Jessica got accepted into Northbrook Preparatory, a prestigious private school on the North Shore. She got in on a scholarship, thank God, because there was no way I could have afforded that tuition. $20,000 a year. Might as well have been $20 million. She was so excited. So was I. "This is your chance, baby," I told her on her first day, straightening her new uniform, the one I'd bought secondhand from a graduating senior's mother. "You work hard, you get good grades, you can go anywhere, do anything." She hugged me tight that morning. "Thanks, Mom, for everything." That was the last time she hugged me like that. Within 2 months, everything changed. Jessica made friends quickly. Girls with names like Madison, Courtney, and Blair. Girls whose fathers were lawyers and doctors and executives. Girls who'd never been inside a grocery store because their families had personal shoppers. At first, she'd tell me about them excitedly over dinner, but gradually her stories became vaguer, more guarded. Then one day I got a call from the school. "Mrs. Kim, this is Principal Harrison. We're having our annual Parent Visiting Day next Friday. We hope you'll be able to attend." "Of course," I said. "I'll be there." That night, I told Jessica about it. Her face went pale. "Oh, that's okay, Mom. You don't have to come." "What do you mean? I want to see your school, meet your teachers." "Mom, it's really not a big deal. It's boring. You can skip it." I looked at her carefully. "Jessica, do you not want me to come?" She looked away. "It's not that. I know you're busy with work." "I'll take the day off." "No." She said it too quickly, too loud. "I mean, don't waste your day off on something boring." I didn't push it, but I felt that knife twist in my heart. The lies started small. When her friends asked about me, she told them I was a business consultant, that I worked with properties. She showed them photos of the Henderson mansion, letting them assume it was ours. I found out by accident. I was cleaning the Henderson study one afternoon when Mrs. Henderson came in with her book club ladies. They were talking about their daughters. "Oh, Margaret," Mrs. Henderson said, noticing me. "How's Jessica doing at Northbrook?" "She's doing wonderfully, ma'am. Thank you for asking." One of the other ladies perked up. "Wait, your daughter goes to Northbrook? My daughter Courtney goes there. She's mentioned to Jessica Kim." I smiled. "Yes, I think they're friends." The woman looked confused. "Funny. Courtney said Jessica's mother was a property consultant. Small world." Mrs. Henderson looked uncomfortable. The woman realized her mistake. Awkward silence filled the room. I smiled politely and excused myself. That night, I confronted Jessica. "Why are you lying about what I do?" "I'm not lying," she said defensively. "You told your friends I'm a consultant." I just didn't correct them when they assumed." "Jessica? Mom, you don't understand. Do you know how hard it is? Everyone at that school has money, real money. They talk about their parents' jobs like they're so important. I can't tell them my mom cleans houses. I just can't." "There's nothing shameful about honest work. That's easy for you to say." Tears were streaming down her face now. "You don't have to walk those halls. You don't have to hear them talk. Some kids at school, their moms come pick them up in Mercedes, Range Rovers. My mom takes the bus." "So that's what this is about? Cars? Money?" "No, it's about fitting in, about having a normal life." "We have a normal life." "No, Mom, you have a normal life. I have to pretend every single day." We didn't speak for 3 days after that fight. And that's when I realized I was losing her, not to distance or time, but to shame. She was ashamed of me, of us, of where we came from. And I didn't know how to fix it. Senior year brought everything to a head. Jessica started dating Brandon Mitchell. Tall, handsome, polite, the kind of boy who wore boat shoes and sweaters tied around his shoulders. His father owned a private equity firm downtown. His mother sat on the board of the Art Institute. They were, in Jessica's eyes, everything we weren't. She brought him home exactly once. He was perfectly nice, shook my hand, complimented our cozy apartment. But I saw how Jessica watched him, nervous, waiting for judgment. After that, all their dates were at his house or restaurants I couldn't afford to eat at. Then came her 21st birthday. I'd been planning it for weeks. Jessica was home for winter break from Northwestern University. She'd gotten a full scholarship, thank God. My baby was in college. Everything I'd worked for was paying off. I baked her favorite cake from scratch, German chocolate, her father's recipe. I bought a small present I'd been saving up for, a delicate gold necklace with a tiny J pendant. But when I called her that morning, she said she was too busy to come by. Study group, finals coming up, maybe later. So I decided to surprise her. I took the train to Evanston, found her dorm, and walked across that beautiful campus carrying my Tupperware container with the cake inside. I felt proud. My daughter went here, to Northwestern. I found her at the Student Center Cafe. She was there with Brandon and a group of friends, beautiful kids in expensive casual clothes, laughing over lattes that cost more than my lunch. I walked up, smiling. "Jessica, happy birthday, sweetie!" The look on her face. I'll never forget it as long as I live. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't even surprise. It was horror. Pure, undiluted horror. "Mom," she said, standing up quickly, "what are you doing here?" "I wanted to surprise you. I brought your cake." "I told you I was busy this weekend." Her voice was tight, controlled. Brandon stood up, extending his hand. "You must be Mrs. Kim. Nice to— Brandon, can you give us a minute?" Jessica was already pulling me away from the table. She practically dragged me outside. The December wind was bitter. I was shivering in my thin coat, the same coat I'd been wearing for 5 winters. Jessica stood there in her North Face jacket, arms crossed, looking at me like I was a problem to solve. "Why didn't you call first?" she hissed. "I wanted it to be a surprise. It's your birthday." "Mom, you can't just show up at my school. This is my space, my life." "I'm your mother." "I know that, but— God, Mom, why can't you understand? This isn't Chicago. These people, they're different. I'm trying to build something here." "Build what? A life based on lies?" Her eyes flashed with anger. "You know what? Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I lied about you. Yes, I told people you were something you're not, because this is hard enough without everyone knowing my mom is a maid." That word, maid. She said it like it was dirty. "I'm not ashamed of what I do," I said quietly, my voice shaking. "I worked hard to get you here, to give you opportunities I never had. And I appreciate that, but don't you get it? I can't move forward if I'm constantly pulled back to where we came from. I need space. I need to be my own person." "I'm not holding you back. Yes, you are." Her voice broke. "Every time I see you, I'm reminded of everything I'm trying to escape. The poverty, the struggle, the embarrassment of it all." I stood there holding that stupid Tupperware container, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until it stopped beating. "I see," I whispered. I held out the cake. She took it, not meeting my eyes. "I should go. I'm sorry for embarrassing you." "Mom!" But I was already walking away. I made it to the train station before I started crying. By the time I got home, I'd cried so hard I'd given myself a headache. That night, Jessica called. "Mom, look, I'm sorry for how I reacted, but I think we need some boundaries. I'm an adult now. I need my independence." "Okay," I said numbly. "Maybe we can have dinner sometimes during breaks, but I think it's better if you don't visit campus or meet my friends or, be involved in that part of my life. You want me to stay away. Long pause. I want space to grow. 3 months later, I drove to see her graduate from Northwestern. I sat in the nosebleed section of the stadium, so far away I could barely see her walk across that stage. She didn't save me a seat at the graduate reception. I drove home alone. Jessica graduated in May of 2015. By August, she'd moved to Manhattan, taken a job at Goldman Sachs, and started her new life. We spoke once more after that, one phone call that ended everything. It was September. I'd been trying to reach her for weeks, calls going to voicemail, texts unanswered. Finally, she called back. "Hi, Mom." "Jessica, sweetheart, I've been so worried. How's New York? How's the job?" "It's fine, good. Listen, Mom, I can't talk long, but I wanted to tell you something." My heart started pounding. I knew somehow what was coming. "I've been thinking a lot," she continued, "about my life, about what I want, and I think it's better if we don't talk for a while." "What do you mean?" "I mean I need to focus on my career, on building my life here, and every time we talk I feel pulled backward, like I can't fully move forward." "Jessica, I'm your mother." "I know, and I love you, but this is what I need right now. Please try to understand." "How long is a while?" Silence. "I don't know. Maybe when I'm more settled, when things are more stable. But right now, I need space, complete space." "You're asking me not to contact me?" "I'm asking you to respect my decision." I was gripping the phone so hard my knuckles were white. "Is this because of Brandon, his family?" "This is about me, Mom, about what I need." "What about what I need? I'm your mother. I raised you. I sacrificed everything. And I never asked you to." Her voice rose. "I never asked you to work 3 jobs. I never asked you to clean houses. That was your choice." Those words hung in the air like poison. "You're right," I said finally, my voice flat. "I chose to keep you fed, clothed, educated. I chose to love you. My mistake." "Mom, don't be like that." "Goodbye, Jessica." I hung up. She didn't call back. That night, I sat in my little apartment in the dark and felt something inside me break. Not my heart, that had been breaking for years. Something deeper, some fundamental belief I'd held on to. I'd always believed that if you loved someone enough, sacrificed enough, gave enough, they would love you back. That maternal love was unconditional, and so was filial love. But I was wrong. My daughter was ashamed of me, and no amount of love could fix that. The first few months were the hardest. I'd wake up in the morning and instinctively reach for my phone to text her. Then I'd remember she didn't want to hear from me. I'd be grocery shopping and see her favorite cereal, Honey Nut Cheerios, and my hand would move toward it before I stopped myself. She wasn't coming home for the weekend. She wasn't coming home at all. Birthdays were torture. Christmas was worse. I kept cleaning houses, kept working, kept existing, but I was hollow inside. My church friends tried to help. They invited me to potlucks, prayer groups, Bible study. I went through the motions, smiled, said I was fine. But at night, alone, I wasn't fine. I started wondering, what was the point? I'd spent 23 years raising this girl, sacrificing everything for her future, and she walked away like I was nothing? Like those 23 years meant nothing? Was I really that embarrassing, that shameful? Was cleaning houses really so degrading that my own daughter couldn't bear to acknowledge me? Then, one Sunday after church, an older woman approached me. Dorothy, Washington. She was 73, had been cleaning houses even longer than I had, and the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. "Margaret," she said, "I see you're hurting."
I tried to brush it off. "I'm okay." "Baby, don't lie to me. I know that look. I wore that look for years." We went to a diner and I told her everything, the whole story. 7 years of rejection culminating in total abandonment. She listened without interrupting. When she finished, she took my hand. "Let me tell you something," she said. "I raised 4 kids, worked my fingers to the bone. 3 of them are wonderful, but one son of mine he left, said he was too good for his family. That was 30 years ago. Haven't heard from him since." "How did you survive it?" "By realizing something important. I was still here. I still had value, whether he saw it or not. And you know what I did? I stopped waiting for him to validate me. I started validating myself." "How?" She smiled. "I built something of my own, started a small cleaning business. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Gave me purpose, identity, beyond just being someone's mother." "I'm 52 years old. Isn't it too late?" "Baby, it's never too late to become who you were meant to be." That conversation planted a seed, a small, fragile seed of possibility. What if I stopped waiting for Jessica to come back? What if I stopped defining myself by her rejection? What if I built something for me? Starting a business at 52 years old with barely any savings and no business experience? Sounds crazy, right? It was crazy, but it was also the only thing that made sense anymore. I'd been cleaning houses for 15 years. I knew every product, every technique, every trick. I knew how to get red wine out of white carpet, how to make stainless steel shine, how to organize a pantry so efficiently it looked like a magazine photo. More importantly, I knew what clients wanted. I'd worked for enough wealthy families to understand they didn't just want clean houses. They wanted reliability, trustworthiness, someone who showed up on time, respected their privacy, and made their lives easier. I had $2,000 in savings. That was my starting capital. I spent $300 on business cards, flyers, and a simple website. The rest went to supplies, commercial-grade equipment, environmentally friendly products, uniforms. I called it MK Cleaning Services. Margaret Kim. Simple, professional. Then I started knocking on doors. Literally. I targeted upscale neighborhoods in Lincoln Park and Lakeview, left flyers at coffee shops, posted on community boards, put ads in local newspapers. Nothing happened. For 3 months, I got exactly 2 calls. One was a wrong number. The other was someone asking if I did windows. I did, but they never called back. I was about to give up when I got a call from a woman named Patricia Henderson. No relation to my old employers, different Henderson family entirely. "I saw your flyer," she said. "How much for a deep clean of a 3-bedroom townhouse?" I quoted her a price, probably too low, but I was desperate. "When can you start?" "Tomorrow." That first job took me 8 hours. I cleaned that townhouse like my life depended on it, because it did. Every corner spotless, every surface gleaming. I even organized her spice rack alphabetically and left a small bouquet of grocery store flowers on her kitchen counter with a thank you note. When Patricia came home, she walked through in silence. I held my breath. "Margaret," she finally said, "this is incredible. How much do I owe you?" I told her. She wrote me a check for double. "That's what this is actually worth. Can you come back every 2 weeks?" "Yes, ma'am. And I'm going to tell my friends about you." That's how it started. 1 client led to 2. 2 led to 5. Within 6 months, I had steady work 5 days a week. But I was still doing it alone. Still just me, Margaret, with my bucket of supplies and my aching back. Then I met Rosa. Rosa Hernandez was 45, recently divorced, and desperate for work. She showed up at one of my jobs asking if I needed help. She'd been a housekeeper in Mexico before coming to America. I work hard. I'm reliable. Please, I need job. I couldn't afford to hire anyone. My margins were too thin. But something in her eyes reminded me of myself 20 years ago. Okay, I said, I'll try you out for a week, see how it goes. Rosa was a miracle. Fast, thorough, cheerful. Clients loved her. Within a month, we were handling twice as many jobs. Within 6 months, I hired another person, then another. By 2018, I had 5 employees and 30 regular clients. It was working, actually working. But then disaster struck. My business partner, a woman I'd brought on to handle scheduling and invoicing, disappeared with $15,000 from our business account. She cleaned us out and vanished. I was devastated. We barely had enough to make payroll. I had to let 3 employees go. Clients started canceling because we couldn't keep up with demand. I was back to square one, worse than square one. I was in debt. I spent 3 nights lying awake, staring at my ceiling, wondering if this was God's way of telling me to give up. Then, on the 4th morning, my phone rang.
Mrs. Kim, this is Elizabeth Anderson. The name meant nothing to me. How can I help you? I'm calling about your cleaning service. I got your information from Patricia Henderson. She speaks very highly of you. Thank you. I'd be happy to provide a quote. Actually, I'm not looking for residential service. I'm on the board of the Lakeshore Tower Condominium Association. We're looking for a new cleaning company to handle our building. 42 floors, 200 units, plus common areas. I almost dropped the phone. That's a significant contract. Yes, we've had problems with our current vendor. Patricia said you're reliable and trustworthy. Those qualities matter more to us than rock-bottom prices. Would you be interested in submitting a bid? Would I be interested? This was a lifeline. Absolutely. When can we meet? 2 weeks later, I sat in a conference room with Mrs. Anderson and 3 other board members. I was terrified. I'd never pitched a contract this big. My company was basically me and Rosa at that point. But I'd prepared, I'd researched, I'd put together a proposal that highlighted not just our services, but our philosophy: personalized attention, eco-friendly products, and employees who were treated like family, not commodities. How many employees do you have? One board member asked. Currently 2, I admitted, but I can scale up quickly if needed. I have a network of experienced cleaners I've worked with, and I can train new staff according to our standards within 2 weeks. You've never handled a contract this size before. No, sir, but I've been cleaning buildings for 20 years. I know the work inside and out. What I'm offering isn't just cleaning, it's partnership. You'll have my personal cell phone number. Any issue, any concern, you call me directly. That's my promise. They looked skeptical. Then Mrs. Anderson spoke. You know what? I believe her. I've seen her work. I've talked to her clients. Everyone says the same thing. Margaret Kim does what she says she'll do. In my experience, that's rarer than you'd think. After 90 minutes of questions, they thanked me and said they'd be in touch. I left that building certain I'd blown it. 3 days later, Mrs. Anderson called. Mrs. Kim, the board voted. We'd like to offer you the contract. Can you start in a month? I literally screamed. Rosa, who was with me, started jumping up and down. That contract changed everything. I hired 12 people within 2 weeks, carefully vetted, properly trained. I bought commercial equipment, uniforms, scheduled training sessions. I worked 20-hour days getting everything ready. And we delivered. Lakeshore Tower became our showcase. Within 6 months, 2 other buildings approached us, then a small chain of medical offices, then a corporate headquarters. I realized something.
There was a gap in the market. Most cleaning companies were either huge corporations that treated clients like numbers or small mom-and-pop operations that couldn't scale. I was right in the middle, big enough to handle serious contracts, small enough to provide personal service. And I had another edge. I genuinely cared about my employees. I paid above market rate, offered health insurance, gave Christmas bonuses, treated everyone with respect. In an industry known for exploitation, I was building something different. Word spread. Good workers wanted to work for me. Clients trusted me. By 2020, we had 45 employees and 50 commercial contracts. By 2022, 70 employees and contracts across Chicago. I moved the business to a real office, hired an accountant, a lawyer, an operations manager. I wasn't just a cleaning lady anymore. I was a CEO. And I still never heard from Jessica. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think about calling her, telling her what I'd built, proving that I was more than just an embarrassment. But pride stopped me. If she wanted nothing to do with her poor, struggling mother, what would she think of her successful mother? Would she suddenly care? Would she want something? No, I'd done this for me, not for her validation. Still, I'd be lying if I said she wasn't always in the back of my mind. Every achievement felt hollow because I couldn't share it with her. Every milestone was bittersweet. I was successful. I was proud of what I'd built, but I was also alone.
By 2023, MK Cleaning Services was worth something I never imagined, $50 million. Let me be clear, I wasn't sitting on $50 million in cash. Most of that value was in contracts, equipment, reputation, and the business itself. But when a business valuation firm looked at our books, that's what they told me we were worth, $50 million. The poor widow who'd once slept in her car to save rent money was now a multimillionaire. We had 120 employees, contracts with 40 buildings, 3 hospital systems, 2 university campuses, 20 corporate offices. We were the largest independently owned commercial cleaning company in Chicago. My personal salary? More than I'd ever dreamed. But you'd never know it by looking at me. I still lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Rogers Park, still drove a 10-year-old Honda Accord, still bought my clothes from Target and Macy's clearance racks. Why? Because I'd learned something important. Money didn't buy happiness, it bought security, freedom, options, but not happiness. I gave quietly to charity, scholarships for kids like Jessica had been, donations to my church, help for other struggling single mothers. I set up a fund for my employees' children to go to college. But I lived simply. One day, a reporter from Crane's Chicago Business called. They were doing a feature on successful female entrepreneurs and wanted to interview me. I appreciate the offer, I said, but I prefer to keep a low profile. Mrs. Kim, you've built something remarkable. People should know your story. Maybe someday, but not now. I hung up. The truth? I was still hoping somewhere deep down that Jessica might come back on her own, that she might miss me, reach out, apologize. If my success became public, if she saw it in the news, it would change everything. She might come back for the wrong reasons, or worse, feel even more ashamed that she'd abandoned me. So I stayed quiet, built my empire in silence. I promoted Rosa to operations director. She cried when I told her. "Margaret, you changed my life," she said. "When I met you, I had nothing. Now my daughter's in nursing school because of this job, because of you. You earned it, Rosa. You worked hard. We all work hard, but you gave us dignity. You treat us like we matter. That meant more to me than any profit margin." At night, though, sitting in my quiet apartment, eating dinner alone, I'd sometimes wonder, was it all worth it? I'd traded my relationship with my daughter for financial success, except I didn't trade it, she threw it away. I'd just filled the void with something else.
but the void was still there. I kept a photo of Jessica on my dresser, her high school graduation picture. That was the last time I remembered her looking at me with love before the shame set in. Sometimes I'd talk to the photo. I did okay, didn't I, baby? You didn't think your old mom had it in her, but I did it. Built something real, something good. The photo never answered, of course. And then 7 years after that final phone call, my phone rang. The caller ID said, Jessica. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. I stared at it for 3 rings, terrified. What did she want? Why now? On the 4th ring, I answered. Hello? Mom? Her voice was tight, strained. Mom, I need to talk to you. Can we meet? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what had happened to Jessica in those 7 years. I didn't know any of this at the time, of course. I only learned it later, piece by piece. Jessica had built exactly the life she'd always wanted. She married Brandon 2 years after cutting me out. Big wedding in Manhattan, the one I attended like a ghost. They bought a penthouse in Tribeca, 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the Hudson River, $2 million. She was a vice president at Goldman Sachs. Brandon ran his own hedge fund. They drove matching Mercedes, vacationed in the Hamptons, ate at restaurants that required reservations 6 months in advance. On Instagram, their life looked perfect. Designer clothes, charity galas, sophisticated friends, the American dream, upper-class edition. Jessica had finally escaped her past. She was someone important, someone who belonged in rooms where people drank champagne and discussed quarterly earnings. But here's the thing about building your life on a foundation of lies. Eventually, the foundation cracks. It started with Brandon's fund. He'd been making risky investments, chasing bigger and bigger returns. In 2022, several of his biggest bets went south. Tech stocks crashed, crypto tanked. He lost $40 million of investor money in 6 months. Then the lawsuit started. Investors claimed he'd misrepresented the risks. The SEC opened an investigation. Brandon tried to cover the losses by borrowing more from banks, from private lenders, from his parents. Meanwhile, Jessica had her own problems. She'd been living beyond even their considerable means. Designer addiction is real. Once you start, it's hard to stop. Her closet was worth more than most people's cars. She spent $20,000 a month on personal expenses, handbags, jewelry, spa treatments, shopping trips to Paris. When Brandon's income dried up, she kept spending. The bills mounted. Credit cards maxed out. The mortgage went unpaid. The Mercedes got repossessed. Brandon became distant, angry. He blamed her for not cutting back. She blamed him for losing everything. Their marriage, already more about image than love, began to fracture. Then came the final blow. Brandon's fund collapsed completely. He declared bankruptcy. His parents, who'd already loaned them hundreds of thousands, cut them off. The penthouse went into foreclosure. In 18 months, they'd gone from millionaires to broke. Jessica found herself in a position she'd spent her entire adult life trying to avoid. She needed help. She'd burned every bridge. Her wealthy friends vanished the moment her money did. Turns out those friendships were as fake as her Instagram posts. Brandon's family blamed her for his son's problems. Her own extended family had long since given up on her. There was nowhere to turn, except maybe the bank. She'd tried a dozen banks already. Every application denied. Her credit was destroyed. She and Brandon needed $300,000 to settle debts, avoid a lawsuit, and start over. No one would touch them. Then someone suggested First National Bank of Chicago. They had a program for business startups and personal restructuring. It was a long shot, but Jessica was desperate. She booked a flight to Chicago, using the last available credit on her last working card. Brandon was too proud to come with her, so she went alone. She walked into First National at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, dressed in her best remaining outfit, a Chanel suit she'd bought in better times, and approached the loan officer's desk. "I need to speak to someone about a large personal loan," she said. The young loan officer, couldn't have been more than 30, looked at her application, looked at her credit report. His expression said everything. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm sorry, but based on your financial history, please, I know it looks bad, but I have a plan. I'm willing to put up collateral, sign personal guarantees, whatever it takes. Just please look at my application." He sighed. "Let me input your information into our system." He typed, waited. Then his eyes widened. Excuse me, your mother, what's her full name?" Jessica's stomach dropped. Why was he asking about her mother? "Margaret Kim? Why?" He typed again, stared at his screen, looked up at Jessica with completely different eyes, a mixture of surprise and something like awe. I need to get my manager. Please wait here." He practically ran to a back office. Jessica sat there, confused and increasingly nervous. What was happening? 5 minutes later, the branch manager emerged, a distinguished man in his 50s. He walked straight to Jessica and extended his hand. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm Robert Chen, branch manager. I understand you're here for a loan?" "Yes, but I don't understand. Please, come to my office. This deserves a more private conversation." In his office, he sat behind his desk and folded his hands, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Miss Mitchell, I need to ask you directly, is Margaret Kim your mother?" Jessica's throat tightened. "Yes, but what does that have to—" "Your mother is one of our most valued clients. In fact, she's our largest private depositor. Her company accounts and personal accounts with us total over $40 million. She's also on our advisory board." The room tilted. Jessica heard the words, but they didn't make sense. $40 million? Advisory board? Her mother? Margaret Kim, the cleaning lady? "There must be some mistake," Jessica whispered. "No mistake. Margaret Kim, 54 years old, CEO of MK Cleaning Services. Does that sound right?" Jessica couldn't breathe. "Your mother built one of the most successful service companies in Chicago. She's remarkable, a real success story. Started from nothing, I understand, built it all herself." He was still talking, but Jessica had stopped hearing. All she could think was, while I was cutting her out of my life because she embarrassed me, she was building an empire? Mr. Chen was saying something about loan terms and mother-daughter relationships, but Jessica couldn't process any of it. Her mind was spinning. Her mother, her cleaning lady mother, was worth $40 million, had been worth that much while Jessica was, what, maxing out credit cards on designer bags, bragging to friends about her penthouse, lying about where she came from? "Miss Mitchell, are you all right?" Mr. Chen looked concerned. I need to call my mother." "Of course, but regarding the loan doesn't matter. I need to go." Jessica stumbled out of that bank in a daze. On the sidewalk, in the cold Chicago wind, she pulled out her phone with shaking hands. The last time she'd called this number was 7 years ago to tell her mother to leave her alone. She dialed. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" Her mother's voice, older, maybe, tired, but still her mother. "Mom," Jessica's voice cracked. "Mom, I need to see you. Can we meet, please?" There was a long pause. Jessica could hear her mother breathing on the other end of the line. "Where are you?" Margaret finally asked. "In Chicago, downtown. There's a diner on Clark Street, Lou's. Can you be there in an hour?" Yes, I'll be there." "Okay." Her mother hung up. Jessica stood on that sidewalk, people rushing past her, and realized she had no idea what she was going to say. Lou's Diner was exactly the kind of place her mother would choose. Simple, clean, nothing fancy, the kind of place with vinyl booths and waitresses who called you hun. Jessica arrived first, sat in a booth by the window, ordered coffee she didn't drink. Then she saw her mother through the window. Margaret Kim looked different, still small, still compact, but she carried herself differently. Her clothes were nice but modest, a simple black blazer, gray slacks. Her hair was shorter, touched with more gray than Jessica remembered. But it was her eyes that had changed. They'd always been warm, loving, a little sad. Now they were guarded, careful. Margaret slid into the booth across from her. They sat in silence for a long moment. "Hi, Mom," Jessica whispered. Jessica. Not sweetie, not baby, just her name. "You look well," Jessica tried. "So do you." Another painful silence. "Mom, I went to a bank today, First National." "I see." They told me about your company, about how much you're worth." Margaret said nothing, just watched her daughter with those guarded eyes. "I didn't know," Jessica continued, her voice getting thick. "All these years I thought you were still just cleaning houses. I didn't know you'd built something so incredible." "Would it have mattered?" Margaret's voice was quiet but sharp. "Would you have treated me differently? Would you have suddenly not been ashamed of me?" "I wasn't." "Don't lie. Not now. We're past that." Jessica's tears started falling. Okay, yes, I was ashamed. I was horrible. I was a terrible daughter. I abandoned you because I was embarrassed about where I came from, because you cleaned houses and I wanted to be someone important." "And did it work? Did cutting me out make you important?" "I thought it did. I built this perfect life, perfect husband, perfect apartment, perfect job. I had everything I thought I wanted, everything I dreamed about since I was that poor kid in Chicago. And now it's all gone, all of it. Brandon's bankrupt, we're being sued, we lost everything. I came to Chicago looking for a loan to save us, and instead I found out that my mother, the mother I threw away, is worth more than I could ever imagine." Margaret sipped her coffee. "So you came here because you need money?" "No, I mean, yes, we need money desperately, but that's not why I called you. I called because I realized I threw away the most important thing I had, not for money or status or success. I threw it away for nothing, for pride, for shame, and I can't believe what I did to you." "You told your friends your mother left early, at your wedding." Jessica looked down. "You knew?" "I was there, Jessica. I heard you." "I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't give me back 7 years. Sorry doesn't erase the shame you made me feel. Sorry doesn't fix what you broke." I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed you to know that I was wrong, so wrong. You were an incredible mother. You sacrificed everything for me, and I repaid you by treating you like you were worthless." They sat there, both crying now, in a diner full of people who pretended not to notice. Finally, Margaret spoke. "I'm not going to give you money." "I understand. You need to hear why, not because I don't have it, not because I'm angry, though I am, but because giving you money won't fix what's broken in you." "What do you mean?" "You've spent your whole adult life running from who you really are, from where you came from. You built your identity on lies and appearance, and now that it's all collapsed, you're still looking for someone else to save you." "I don't understand." "When your father died and we lost everything, you know what I did? I worked. I cleaned toilets and scrubbed floors and bled my hands raw. But I did it. I survived. I built something from nothing, not because I wanted to prove something to you or anyone else, but because that's what you do when life knocks you down. You get back up." Margaret leaned forward. "You want my help? I'll give you help, but not money. I'm offering you a job." Jessica blinked. "A job?" "At my company, starting at the bottom, as a cleaner." The words hung in the air like a slap. "You want me to clean houses?" I want you to learn what real work is, what real value is. The thing I did for 20 years while you were growing up, the thing you were so ashamed of, I'm offering you the chance to understand it. Mom? The job pays $15 an hour. You'll work 40 hours a week. You'll clean offices and buildings and bathrooms. You'll take orders from supervisors. You'll do exactly what I did. And if you can do that for 6 months of honest work, then we can talk about rebuilding our relationship. Jessica sat there stunned. I know what you're thinking, Margaret said. You're thinking this is beneath you, that your Princeton degree and your fancy job title mean you shouldn't have to do manual labor. That's exactly the problem. What if I say no? Then you say no. You walk out of here and we probably never speak again. You figure out your own life, your own problems, but you do it with the knowledge that you had a chance to fix things and you chose pride over family again. The ultimatum was clear. Jessica looked at her mother, this woman she'd rejected, this woman who'd built an empire in silence, this woman who had every right to slam the door in her face, and made a choice. Okay, she whispered, I'll do it.
The first day was hell. Jessica showed up at 5 a.m. to the MK Cleaning Services warehouse in work boots and the uniform her mother had provided. Navy blue polo shirt with the company logo, black pants, hair pulled back. Rosa handed her a mop, a bucket, and a list of tasks. You'll be on the team cleaning the Riverside Plaza building today. 6 floors of office space. Stay quiet, work hard, and listen to your team lead. Any questions? Jessica had about 1,000 questions, none of which would make this situation less humiliating. She spent 12 hours that day mopping floors, emptying trash cans, cleaning bathrooms, and scrubbing conference room tables. Her back ached, her hands blistered, her pride shattered into 1,000 pieces. The other cleaners treated her politely but distantly. They knew who she was, the boss's daughter, the prodigal child doing penance. By the end of the first week, Jessica had cried more times than she could count. Her body hurt, her ego was demolished. She'd text Brandon photos of her blistered hands, and he'd respond with cold, angry messages about how she was humiliating both of them. By the end of the first month, Brandon filed for divorce. He couldn't handle it. His wife scrubbing toilets, the shame of it, the embarrassment of explaining to their friends that Jessica was working as a cleaning lady in Chicago. The irony wasn't lost on Jessica. But something strange was happening. As her old life completely fell apart, she started to notice things, small things. The way Rosa made sure everyone took lunch breaks and actually ate. The way the other cleaners looked out for each other, covering when someone was sick or struggling. The way they took pride in their work, how Maria would always polish the glass until it was perfectly streak-free, how Carlos arranged the office break rooms so they looked welcoming. These people weren't just working, they were building something together. One day, about 3 months in, Jessica was cleaning a bathroom when she overheard 2 office workers talking by the sinks. "I don't know how they keep this place so clean," one woman said. "My apartment is a disaster." "I know. These cleaners are amazing. I wish I could hire them for my house." After they left, Jessica stood there, staring at her reflection in the mirror she'd just cleaned. When was the last time someone had said something like that about her work at Goldman Sachs? When had she actually created value for anyone? She'd pushed papers, made deals, shuffled money around, but had she actually made anyone's life better? These cleaners did, every single day. 4 months in, Margaret invited her to Sunday dinner. They sat in Margaret's modest apartment. Jessica was shocked her mother still lived there, and ate homemade chicken soup. "How's the work going?" asked Margaret. "It's hard," Jessica admitted. "Everything hurts. I'm exhausted all the time. But I don't know. I'm learning things." "Like what?" "Like how much I took for granted, how much work goes into things I never even noticed, how much dignity there is in doing something well, even if it's something simple." Margaret smiled slightly.
Your father used to say that. He said there was honor in any honest work as long as you did it with integrity. I wish I'd understood that before. You understand it now, that's what matters. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Mom, why did you do this? Why offer me the job instead of just writing me off? Margaret set down her spoon. Because you're my daughter, because despite everything I still love you, and because I knew that giving you money would just enable you to keep running from yourself. You needed to hit bottom, really hit it, and then climb back up. I'm not sure I can climb back up. Of course you can. You're my daughter. You're stronger than you think. 6 months to the day after she started, Jessica was called into Margaret's office. Her mother sat behind a simple desk, looking every bit the CEO she was. You kept your word, 6 months. How do you feel? Tired, sore, humbled, but better, like I'm finally real, if that makes sense. It does. So what happens now? Margaret pulled out an envelope. Now you have a choice. In here is a check for $50,000, enough to pay off your immediate debts, start fresh somewhere. You take it and we part as friends, no judgment. Or I'm opening a new division, residential services, high-end homes, personalized service. I need someone to run it, someone who understands both worlds, the working world and the wealthy world, someone who's learned humility but hasn't forgotten ambition. Jessica stared at her mother. You're offering me a real job, not just penance? You've done your penance. Now I'm offering you a future. But only if you want it. No pressure, no obligation. Jessica looked at the envelope, then at her mother. Can I ask you something first? Of course. Do you forgive me for everything I did? Margaret was quiet for a long moment. I'm working on it. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a journey. But yes, I think I'm getting there. More importantly, do you forgive yourself? Jessica thought about that, about 7 years of running, of shame, of lies, of throwing away the most precious thing she'd ever had. I'm working on it too. Then we'll work on it together. Jessica left the envelope on the desk. I'd like to stay, if you'll have me. Margaret smiled, really smiled, for the first time in 7 years. I'd like that too.
2 years later, Jessica and Margaret sat in that same diner where they'd had their painful reunion, Lou's Diner. Same vinyl booths, same coffee. But everything was different. Jessica now ran MK Residential Services, which had become the most sought-after house cleaning service in Chicago. She'd taken everything she learned, both from her fancy corporate days and her 6 months as a cleaner, and built something special. Her team was known for professionalism, attention to detail, and genuine care. She lived in a small apartment in Lakeview. She drove a used Toyota. She had savings, real savings, for the first time in her life. Not because she was rich, but because she was careful, thoughtful, finally living within her means. Brandon? She hadn't heard from him in over a year. The divorce was finalized. He'd moved back to New York, still chasing the life they'd lost, still unable to accept that success might look different than he'd imagined. Jessica didn't miss it, any of it. You know what's funny? Jessica said, sipping her coffee. I spent so many years trying to become someone else, someone important, someone worthy, and it turned out the most valuable lesson came from the person I'd rejected. Margaret smiled. What lesson is that? That success isn't about what you own or where you live or who knows your name. It's about integrity, about treating people with dignity, about building something real, even if it starts small. That's a good lesson. I wasted so many years, Mom, years I could have spent with you, learning from you. You weren't ready. Sometimes we need to lose everything to find what actually matters. Jessica reached across the table and took her mother's hand. Thank you for not giving up on me, for teaching me what I needed to learn even when I didn't want to learn it.
That's what mothers do. Not all mothers. You could have written me off. You had every right. Love doesn't give up, sweetie. It gets tested, it gets hurt, but real love doesn't give up. They finished their coffee, split a piece of pie, talked about work, about Jessica's new apartment, about Margaret's plans to finally take a vacation, something she'd never done. As they left the diner, walking together down Clark Street in the autumn sunshine, Jessica thought about that wedding 2 years ago, about sitting in the last row, invisible and rejected. She thought about the empire her mother had built in silence, about the strength it took to survive abandonment and turn it into purpose. And she thought about second chances, about redemption, about how sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you were always supposed to have. "Mom," she said suddenly. "Yes?" "I love you. I don't think I've said that enough. I love you, and I'm proud to be your daughter." Margaret stopped walking, turned to her daughter, and pulled her into a tight, fierce hug. "I love you too, baby. Always have. Always will." They stood there on that busy Chicago sidewalk, two women who'd been broken and rebuilt, lost and found, separated and reunited. And for the first time in many years, they both felt whole.
So that's my story. My daughter lied at her wedding, said I wasn't there when I was sitting right behind her. She abandoned me because she was ashamed of her cleaning lady mother. But what she didn't know was that her cleaning lady mother had built a $50 million empire in silence, with dignity, with grace. And when she finally discovered the truth, when her perfect life collapsed and she came crawling back, I didn't give her money. I gave her something better, a chance to learn what real value is, what real work is, what real love is. Not everyone would have forgiven her. Not everyone should. But forgiveness isn't about whether someone deserves it. It's about whether you're strong enough to give it. And I was. We both were. Today, my daughter and I run our businesses together. We have dinner every Sunday. We talk, we laugh, we remember. And sometimes we sit in silence, just grateful to have found each other again. Was it easy? No. Did it happen overnight? Absolutely not. But it was worth it, because family isn't just about blood. It's about showing up, working through the hard stuff, choosing each other, even when it would be easier to walk away. If this story touched you, please subscribe to this channel and let me know in the comments, would you have forgiven her? Because that's the question I ask myself sometimes. Would I do it all again, knowing how much pain was coming? And every time, the answer is yes, because she's my daughter. And love, real love, doesn't give up. Thank you for listening to my story.